Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 511. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and highly talented children's book author, Joel Conwell. Joel.
Wait, I'm internationally acclaimed?
Yeah, of course.
Wow, I didn't even know this. Is a surprise to me. This is news. What news? What a great way to start my night. I'll take it. Well, hey, Barney, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. I mean, you and I I think we chatted for about 10 minutes and we could have kept going. You're already a joy to chat with. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I know. So we've recorded at least 12 minutes, but we were also talking for at least 20 minutes ahead of that. So we've been actually on for like 30 minutes. That's amazing.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm taking up all of your night.
Yeah. Well, no, this is great. This you can tell there's good banter here. So that's fantastic. So we're here to talk a little bit about your latest book, The Boy in the Tree, When Weak is Okay. So talk to us a little bit about that. Then give us kind of like what your elevator pitch is on what The Boy in the Tree is all about.
So ideally, The Boy in the Tree is a story for both parents and kids, right? Because it's, as a parent myself, right? I have a 7-year-old and 6-year-old. The world comes at them very quickly, and you don't get your innocence back. You don't get your naivety back, and you don't get your perspective on weakness and embarrassment and risk. You don't get that very youthful, innocent view of that back. And once the world's kind of attacked it with whatever, right? Whether it's school, you're at school, and especially now with social media, it's threatened by, hey, everyone can see what you're doing. People might talk about it. People might, gossip about it. Like, so you should just stay within your little bubble, or, you never want to be embarrassed. You don't want to get hurt. And it's all comes from this idea that I came up with when I was younger, because I was the boy in the tree. It was, I never want to be embarrassed. I hated it. I hated how it felt. And so I thought, I'm never going to let that happen again. Never. And it significantly hindered my life in ways I didn't even know until later. And so if I was going to pitch it to anyone, I'd say, like, hey, if you are someone who's intentional about the way you interact with your kids and the way they interact with the world around them, this is the book for you, because it's been so cool to me to see, I have done readings now with special needs kids. I've done readings with kids that are in middle school. I've done readings with kids that are in kindergarten, and every single demographic is able to take something away from this book, because it's a story that I believe is kind of transcends the age. And it's that, life is too short to live it avoiding risk because you're afraid to be embarrassed. And why do that? Why not try this one thing you've always wanted to try? Like, you're a kid. I mean, don't be that 30, 45-year-old who's like, oh, well, I always wanted to do this because when you were younger, you thought about it and someone said, don't, right? Or you got embarrassed and you never wanted to do it again. Like, that's not what your life is supposed to be like. You're a kid. You're supposed to be able to enjoy and try and fail and try and fail. And you don't need to get embarrassed about it and feel like the whole world against you as a result. So that's why I wrote the book. It was even a part of my own journey of just kind of working through things. And then, and I was going to counseling, and my counselor this is the funny story behind it. My counselor said, let's do a trauma inventory. Like, and so you basically go through all the different traumas of your life, and you have to start as early as you can remember. And so, the counselor goes, hey, what's the earliest trauma you can remember? And I say, I don't know. Like, I'm 35, or at the time I was like 33. I don't know. I can't remember that early. He's like, any time in your life where something didn't go well, the earliest memory you can think of. And I said, I don't know. I got stuck in a tree. He goes, let's talk about that. And so we talk about that. And lo and behold, I was so embarrassed by getting stuck in the tree that I thought I'm never going to have this happen again. And that was the first, you could say, like concussion of avoiding risk and being embarrassed or controlling things. And that was the thing that started all the other stuff. And I had no idea. And so as we talked through that, he said, you should, since you're a writer, you should write a poem about it or story about it. And so I did. I wrote a very rough kind of poem about it. And I showed it to him the next time. And he said, this is really good. You should finish it and you should publish it as a kid's book. And because I had already published a book that no one read already, I figured, why not make it too? And so I decided I'm going to turn it into this kid's book. And I was already kind of talking to Ripples, who is my publisher now. And they were like, this is a great story. Let's do it. And so that's how it came about. And I think that's why it's so powerful too, because it wasn't just this fun story I came up with, but it was a story that was effective to me in my own journey. And it just every time, I mean, it sends ripples, into whatever group I'm at. And there's always a couple kids that really resonated with it, no matter the age group. So
What would you say adults often get wrong when a child is scared or overwhelmed?
oh my gosh, that's a great question. Speaking from personal experience, the thing I get wrong is I interpret their fear, their embarrassment through my perspective. And it's, I mean, that's wrong in two ways, because my perspective, if we're honest as a parent, I'm jaded by something, I always make the joke, if someone looks down, I'm like, what burden of the world is hurting you today? Like as an adult, you just feel burdened by the world. And so then the problem is you look at your kids' interaction with the world through that burdened, jaded lens, or you filter it through your personal frustrations with maybe yourself. And so, you're not looking at this child as like, okay, this person is literally being still formed. So these things seem huge to them. And then to me, even though I'm later in life, I could be like, it's not that big of a deal. It's the biggest of deals. And these are opportunities to help them be resilient or help them be avoidant. And so I think that's what we get wrong, is we as parents and as adults will look at it and go, that's not a big deal. Either because we're so frustrated and jaded by the world that we live in, or we're so busy that we can't even have the time or the mind space to even process this. So we're like, you just need to get over that. And it's not this, we're creating snowflakes and participation trophy kind of stuff. It's more that, I mean, you just imagine, when you're a kid, everything new is new. And because it's new, it's the biggest thing that you've ever faced. And so why not meet them in that moment and go, yeah, it probably is incredibly impactful right now to you. And help me understand why. And then I can help you be resilient. I think that's what we should do, but we far too often don't.
Now, then what would you say then, regarding the book? What does courage look like in this book, and how is that different from, say, like just being tough?
I honestly, the courage. So as you kind of read through the book, it moves through. This boy loves climbing trees, gets stuck in a tree. Dad has to save him. Is embarrassed, and he says, "I'm never going to have that happen again." And it just kind of talks about how he grows up living that way, but then eventually realizes like that's not the way to do it. That's courage, is saying, I may have lived a certain way for 20 years, but I'm going to now take the steps to change that. That's courage. I mean, as an adult, and courage as a kid is saying, I may have gotten stuck in a tree, fallen off a bike or whatever, but I want to try again. Why not try again? And I honestly, I think to like my daughter one time got invited to a birthday party at a roller rink. She's never roller skated, and she fell so many times. But every time she'd start to cry and get upset, she'd go, I want to go back out and try again. And I'm like, that's courage. And then even more so, she's like, hey, can we buy some roller skates? Because I want to get better so that if I get invited again, I can actually have more fun. Like, that's courage. Because that's not her saying, like, I don't want to be embarrassed. It's, like, I want to practice. Just because it wasn't fun this time and it was difficult doesn't mean I can't keep trying. So I think courage just really can take different shapes for whatever season you're in.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So let's talk a little bit about the book itself and just putting on your author hat. How did you kind of decide like the pacing of where tension rises and where it softens? Because it's a book that people expect to flip the pages through.
Right. I think the which is a great question. What I filtered it through was I've a master's in counseling, and one of my favorite things is asking good questions, but then also at the same time presenting the logical progression of a thought process or behavioral kind of framework. What I mean by that is, okay, if you keep thinking this, here are the possibilities that are probably going to happen. Right. So let's say, I'm someone who doesn't control my anger. Well, eventually you're probably going to say something to someone not even close to you, but, maybe out on the road or in public, and they're not going to be as kind as other people are that are close to you. And you might have a very bad circumstance that happen, and you might end up going to jail or something. Like the idea of just what is the logical progression of a current idea or framework or mindset or behavioral framework you have. And so as a storyteller, I wanted to emulate that in that story, in the sense of, okay, this kid, me, gets stuck in a tree, says, I never want to be like that again. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I'm going to avoid that. Okay, well then what does that look like? Well, then what this does is it gives a kid who's reading this, who has no frame of reference for what it's like to be an adult, gets to see a story of here's what happens when that's how you live. This is what an adult, like an extension or logical progression of that kid's mindset looks like as an adult now. But that's not the end, because the adult still can change their mind and try to be different and risk and take courage and stuff like that. And so that was why I structured it that way. And honestly, with the next kid's book, which will be The Girl in the House, similar kind of The Boy in the Tree, it's the same. It's going to be written the same way. It's going to have, here's something happens, an inciting event that's not something that's so traumatic that alienates you as a reader, but isn't so mundane that you can't really understand it. But an inciting event causes a reaction, a thought process change, and then you see what happens as a logical progression. Because I don't think we tell enough of those stories to kids. We're so in the moment of this happens to like this dog or whatever, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but kids can handle deeper, more elaborate stories that show the consequence over time. I don't think we give them credit. And so I wanted to do that with my story. Was what would I have really wanted to hear when I was a kid? I would have wanted to hear, hey, I get what you're going through, but also if you sit like this, that's like 5 years, 10 years down the road, it's not gonna be fun, then I've done those in readings. When I've read this book, I've said, I've asked for what's something that happened that was embarrassing. And someone said, I missed a soccer goal, or I fell off my bike. And I said, okay, so imagine you decide you're never going to do that again. So that means you'll never play soccer ever again. And what if, you're still good at it and your friends want you to try out for the high school team, but you said, I'm never doing that again. That would be so sad if you decided now to change your future because of that. And kids, when I say that to them, you can see them understand that. And that's one of the reasons I paced it like that and I structured it like that, was to show parents too, kids can have these conversations about making decisions that could change their future.
No, because you have a counseling background, Joel. How did that influence you when you wrote this book?
I think, honestly, great question too. It falls more in line with that, thinking through the logical progression, but also being okay with harder realities, right? Like in presenting those kind of harsher realities of making decisions like that about your future based on a present emotion, and how we do that still as adults, but then also how there are things when we were younger that we didn't think might have been formative sounds a little too intense, but formative or impactful as adults. And we never would have thought of that until we were presented that situation. Like when I was presented in counseling. So it's the same thing with this book. It's why I wrote it in the degree of, as an adult who's reading this to their kid, maybe they go, there's a tree I'm stuck in still. Right. And that's actually, I've had a couple conversations with adults when I did like a pop-up at Barnes and Noble, and they said, yeah, I'm still stuck in the tree. I never even thought of that. But now as I'm reading this, I'm going, there's a tree I'm still stuck in, and it's, XYZ. And so that influences my counseling background, influences me too, in that, because it was, you're never too old to make these epiphanies about something that happened when you're younger. And everyone always likes to make the joke in the counseling world that, if you're facing some issue now, it's one thing or your mother, meaning like something traumatic happened when you were younger. What happened when you were a kid? Or what did your mom do to you when you were younger that traumatized you? But it is true that in those heavily formative years, stuff does happen, and then we don't think about it until later. And so I'd say that was really a big part, coming from a counseling background. How many times I was in a counseling session with couples, because I did a lot of crisis, marriage, addictions counseling, and seeing essentially the outcome of what happened so much time ago, so long ago in their lives. I am now seeing the fruition of whatever happened now, and I'm counseling the outcome of what happened, not like this realized person who has the emotional intelligence and understanding of what happened, but the ability to work through it and the handles to work through it. I am seeing this person that's just the sum of whatever happened when they were younger, trying to figure things out. And I became very passionate about, okay, let's reach them before that happens, so that we don't have as many people going to counseling sessions later in life being like, I don't really know what happened. Oh, this happened when I was a kid. Oh man. I mean, like, I don't know, Bernie, you're a parent. How many times have you been working through things, right? But you still have to parent. Like, wouldn't it be better if we got to the people and the kids and worked to help them work through things, so that when they're parents, they're not trying to work through heavy things that impacted them when they're younger, while also doing bath time and doing homework and planning field trips like that. I'm only saying that as someone who literally does these things. And, I'm supposed to like be emotionally intelligent and available to my kids. And I'm like, I'm working through my own crap. How am I supposed to help you work through yours? And that's what my mind always goes, is like, well, what if we had, fixed the problem earlier on, so that these parents aren't feeling like they have to choose my mental health or my kid's mental health,
So then, if teachers read this aloud, what's a good simple follow-up questions that you'd recommend?
Oh, that's a great one. Honestly, I think a really good follow-up question would be, what's something that's happened to you? Like, what's something that happened that was embarrassing? And how did it make you feel? And then the follow-up question is, would you still do it again? Because I think that gets to the heart of it, is, are these kids so much more concerned now about never taking a risk again, or are they saying, yeah, I would do that again? Because then you just you praise that, because that's a resilient mindset. And so if a teacher's reading this to their kids, and their follow-up question is, what's something that was embarrassing to you? How did it make you feel? And then if you ask them, would you do it again? And they say yes. I mean, that's an opportunity to heap, I think, valuable praise, to say that's an awesome mindset. Never forget that, because you see the value in the joy and the fun in life. And if they're on the flip side and they're like, I don't want to, then it gives you an opportunity to kind of lean in and say, well, why not? And then as they say, well, I don't want to be embarrassed, I'm like, hey, that's a normal feeling. And I get that. And I still feel that way too about things. But at the same time, how sad would life be if every time something bad happened, we said, I'll never want to do that again? Life is so fun. Remember how fun it is when you get to do these things? Enjoy that again. Right. And so I've had teachers say that they've kind of done similar things and seen great results. So.
Now, but so what's the most common thing kids do when they're nervous that you mentioned, like adults misread?
I think this is really good. Honestly, I think they lash out is a big one. They get angry, they get short. And I only say that because my oldest daughter is very much like me, and that she hates to be embarrassed. To which I went, man, is it really hereditary? Where did you learn this from, other than getting it from my genes? But when she gets when she's nervous, she gets defiant. And I
Mm.
think and I think it's because as a kid, right, you understand that there are a lot of things that are outside of your control, but you don't know how to then react to not having that control. And so what you do is you try to take control back into your hands. And oftentimes that's just saying no, right? Or being defiant towards your parents. And we as adults, we know that that's something that we do, but we have I don't know what the word is, the understanding that life continues. So you can't just stop. Like, you can't just be defiant and say no. You still have to do the daily things of your life. But for kids, they feel like ironically, I have the autonomy, even though I don't, to say no and be defiant. And that's how they take control back when they're nervous. And so if you have a child that's it's being defiant, that's being obstinate, that's saying no a lot, it could literally be like my daughter she was going to a play for the first time with her school. She was really nervous because she's never done it. And she later then said, like, I'm really nervous about that. I don't know what it's going to be like. And so thankfully she told us what was going on. But I remember my wife and I were looking at each other like, why is Lucy being so difficult? And we would even ask her, like, why are you being so difficult? Why are you being so defiant? What's going on? And she'd be like, I don't know. I just am, and then later, as she calmed down, she realized what it was. So I'd say that would be what it is. Look for that. Look for defiance, obstinance, no a lot. And you probably won't even get the answer even if you know the question to ask. Like, is there something that you're nervous about or anxious about? Because they haven't come down from that emotional roller coaster. And so, presence is a big thing, just being there and reminding them that's okay. But then also not letting it go, in the sense of, just saying, well, they'll maybe talk to me later. That's why I think it's really good that, we do this. I don't tell people you have to, I just think you should, but we do at bedtime, we'll do good and bads. And so just before I, got on this podcast, I did bedtime for my two daughters. And I said, what was your good and bad today? And sometimes, more often than not, that's what, like, the segue that they use, not me, that they use to kind of talk about, well, I'm nervous about this. Just because I presented the environment of, let's talk about, well, hey, what was your good and bad? I'm going to say mine. I'd love to hear yours. And I created that environment for them to then go, okay, well, I can talk about maybe something else that's on my mind or on my heart.
So when you talk about weakness, what word would you rather kids grow up with?
I would just say maybe it's maybe reality. It's just reality. We're never going to be perfect. There's weakness. I think weakness is a fine word to use. I think the connotation people have, it got ruined a lot by that. Even my generation as a millennial, the whole manhood thing was changed because boomers to Gen X to millennials was very much this kind of like what's manliness, what's manhood look like. And so weakness became a taboo word, but weakness is just reality. I don't think that's, there's no other connotation. It's just reality. You are never so strong that you could never be hurt. You're never so smart that you could never be wrong. So it's, so that's why I'd say I think reality is a good word.
Okay. Wow. So now, Joel, if people want to learn more about you and your work, where's the best place they could go to?
Honestly, the website, jconwell.org. I'll be posting more stuff there as I do more. But also follow me on socials. So Jay Conwell on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. You're talking about marketing. I'm terrible at it because I hate social media. It's not because I don't know how to use social media. It's because I hate it. I cannot stand using social media because, like, so much of the content that I've come up with when I've worked with videographers and stuff has been my brainchild. So a lot of the videos you'll see online, the things that I've posted, those are all my idea. And then someone helps me kind of bring it to reality. But I just it's just the social media, the I don't know, like the death cycle of what it is. You just keep going through the same thing. You post, you have to post, you have to post, you have to do the algorithms. And I'm like, I don't know. I wrote a kid's book. I probably should care more about my family than what the algorithm is telling me to do with my kids book posts. So it's
Right.
hard. Like it's a hard balance, but yeah, socials, J Conwell. That's actually my middle name. My last name's Archery, but no one knows how to spell it. So J Conwell is what I go by. So you can find that on Instagram. I'm on TikTok too, YouTube. But yeah, it's best way to probably to follow me there.
Excellent. All right. Well, listen, so we had a blast talking before we even hit the record button. So next time you have a book come out, Joel, come back on. This has been great.
I would love to. I mean, we could talk for hours. I have a bunch of book ideas. The problem is, paying for them. I have this
Right.
sci-fi trilogy I'm almost done with the second book of, which is actually a very good story. I'd send it to you if you want the rough draft manuscript for the first book, because it's so good. I'll send it to you if you want. I got your email, so I'll just
Yeah,
send it
there
to
you
you if you
go.
want. But I just I think storytelling. I hate to say it like is a lost art, but like really good storytelling that engages within emotional intelligence. I think that's just it's niche, but not for a good reason. I think it's because
Right.
we just don't tell those good stories that force you into those. And so I love it. I tell people I want to die as an author, and I'm 35. By 45 I want to have at least 5 or 10 books out. I want to die with like 50 books out. It's just,
Yeah.
I found what I love doing, which is writing stories and writing in general. And I never want to stop. So hopefully we'll have countless more conversations. That's the hope.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Joel.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.